Hi, Glory.
Hi, Safiya.
How you doing?
I am doing well. So happy to be in Charleston.
Yeah. Happy to be here as well and to be in conversation with you. We've known each other for some time.
Yes.
I've known you in all the different hats that you've worn. Starting Well-Read Black Girl and being someone who really gave back to the literary community, particularly to Black women writers like me. And so I'm happy to be here and to lift you up and talk about this wonderful book. And to talk about the actual writing of the book. And one of the things I get asked often is like, why memoir?
Yeah.
There's so many ways to tell a story. Everybody thinks they have a story. Not everybody has an interesting story.
Right.
And I'm just telling the truth. And then to figure out, okay, do I tell it in nonfiction, and in what format do I tell it, and bring me on this journey of getting to this place of saying, okay, I think it's time to tell my story, and I'm going to write a memoir.
Yeah, it was a very long process to gather me, because I think originally I have always been so confident in being a reader. I love to be the cheerleader, to encourage, to read, but to actually stop and do the self-investigation of looking at my own life with this objective lens and saying, like, this is my story, this is who my people are, this is where I come from. I had no intention of doing that, but so many people were just like, oh, well, what are your favorite books? Or like, how did you start Well-Read Black Girl? Mm-hmm. So the original thought was maybe to write this kind of like business-like story of how I started the organization and how I became like this literary citizen.
Yes.
But the reality of it wasn't that simple. It wasn't this straight line to Well-Read Black Girl and then here's my memoir. It was so many things that happened in my life. And I will never forget when I first was starting the book club, this young woman came up to me. She's like, you're always so happy. You're always so enthusiastic. It seems like nothing ever happened to you. And I was just like, what is this? I was just like, don't let the happiness and joy, don't mistake that for no struggle, no sacrifice.
Yes.
There were so many parts of my story that people were surprised by, in particular, the relationship with my mother,
yes.
Just like being first generation and the complication of that duality of trying to figure out who I am as an American, but also my Nigerian heritage. There were just like so many complications that I didn't know that I had to tell until I had to do the telling. Mm-hmm. And becoming a mother, I'm sure some of you saw me running around with a 5-year-old outside. That also gave me such motivation to be able to write the parts of the story that I know very clearly and the things that I was still figuring out and unfolding. It was like, okay, I'm expecting my first child. I want him to know everything. I know all the things that I had questions about from both my parents that for reasons, that are complicated, they weren't always able to tell me, but I also wanted to write into those gaps and say, this is all that I know, and I want you to take this and continue that journey of knowing your history, discovering who you are as a person, and even the dedication, it's all to my son, because I want him to be able to tell a story that is honest and true, and that is him. So that's a kind of complicated roundabout answer to say, I was just trying to figure it all out,
Yeah. I'm really interested in this idea about truth versus silence. A lot of the time in the book you kind of talk about a kind of responsibility that we feel sometimes as Black women, as eldest daughters, as being part of the Black community, that you don't tell your family story. You don't tell your business. You kind of keep it in.
Yeah.
You kind of protect everyone with this silence. Yeah. And I loved the moments in the book where you pushed back on that, where you came to these realizations through the books that you were reading and the characters that you were meeting, these other Black women that came into themselves and came into their voice to say, actually, no, I want to tell my truth. I want to pierce this kind of veil of silence. And so I wondered if you could talk about that balance of truth versus silence and the challenges that you found with that balance while writing the book.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the parts that was most difficult for me was what the truth is, right? So, you know that part in the book, like these memories are my own, that disclaimer every author usually puts in the beginning. It is really crucial because I was talking to my mother and I was talking to my siblings, and we were sharing the exact same memory and had completely different vantage points. And I was just like, no, this happened on this day. And my brother would say, no, like I felt this way and mom said that. And I'm like, no, we were sitting in the same room on the couch. Like we had so many debates back and forth, and I had to stop doing that. Like pretty early on, I kept writing chapters and then sharing them and going back and forth
because it was too disparate.
Absolutely, it was too much, and it made me solidify my own thoughts. And I was like, I can't keep going back and asking permission. This is how I remember it. This is my truth, and I'm going to be factual where it needs to be factual. But in terms of my interior dialogue, like how I felt, I can't ask permission from someone else. So once I kind of like locked that in and really took my mind in a way where I was just like curious about my life, and like I made playlists of songs that I listened to in high school. I like found all the books, the majority of the books that I mentioned in the book, I had the original copies of when I first read them. So I had the original copy of the narrative of Frederick Douglass when I read it in high school, and the original copy of The Bluest Eye. So I had written a lot in the margins, and I could tell like different times of when I read it. So I could tell the time like I read it my freshman year versus the time I read it my sophomore year of college. So I was kind of like taking all these notes about myself and trying to figure out who I was at that time. And a big part of the book is the relationship with my mom. And this isn't necessarily a spoiler, but my mom did suffer from severe depression, and she had selective mutism. So, which means she was silent during her depression. She didn't talk. She just had this almost like comatose feeling about how she moved in the world. But even in her silence, she would write to me. And I found those letters that she was writing to me. And sometimes they would be long letters about how she was feeling, but not speaking. Or sometimes it would just be like a grocery list of things like I needed to get for the house. And I had to think about what that silence meant and how my mother it wasn't that she didn't love me or didn't have, the yearning to talk. She just literally didn't have the capacity. And I had to really understand like the severity of depression and silence and what it means. And despite like having the intellectual abilities to understand that, you still feel it. I still was disappointed that I couldn't connect with my mom. I was still almost at times resentful and frustrated that like I didn't have this quote unquote normal mother, but I still had a mother, and I still appreciated and loved her. And as I look, and my mom is now doing so incredible.
I'm so glad.
It just is. Thank you.
Because that's also something that we don't talk about a lot in certain communities. I mean, in Jamaica, I always joke that I tell my dad all the time, go to therapy. And he will say, Rasta, don't go to therapy.
Right.
And so it's, and so talking about mental health issues, I thought it was so important that you did it.
Absolutely, because at the time I was going through these things, I didn't have the language, I didn't have the vocabulary. I was really just like trying to survive and make sure that my siblings and I had the things, because it's so odd to think about it, because during this time, like I'm still on the dean's list, I'm still doing well in school, I'm still doing all these things, I'm very high functioning, but like the silence in our home just made it really complicated. If you guys want to know, behind the scenes, the original version of this book, before going into this structure of using books as memories, I originally did use a lot of my mom's letters as the first draft.
Wow.
Yeah, so I used that, but then fast forward, I asked her and she said no. And so she didn't want them to be published.
Oh my goodness.
So she was kind of like, this is, you still have your agency to tell your story, but those letters that I wrote, I would prefer if you didn't publish them. So I had to go back to the drawing board and respect my mother, respect my family, family, and it was a good push because it forced me to have more agency in the story and think more creatively and be more innovative about my life and like think about the memories in a different way versus I would say the first iteration of this was very dependent on my mother's story.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, without that, what does this story look like? And who am I as a person? And it opened it up in a beautiful way. And I actually feel like it made it more universal too, because so many people have said like, I remember when I first read, Maya Angelou, and I remember when I first read, The Bluest Eye, and or Romeo and Juliet or Shakespeare. Like those memories feel very universal.
Yeah, it's the book is so expansive, and it's a love song to your foremothers, right? All of these writers that came and touched your life just at the moment that you needed.
Yes, yeah.
And I love how you name them several times in the book. Like an incantation, you say. Davis, Giovanni, West, Brooks, Butler, Lord, Hooks, Adichie, Shanjay, Kincaid, Hurston, Naylor, Angelou, Bambara, Walker, Hansberry, Morrison, Smith, Sanchez. And when I read that, I was just like, yes, I can feel the power of their words and the magics that they brought to my life also moving through me. And I wondered about, it made me think about, the book made me think about mothering in many ways. And I thought about storytelling and language as a matriarchal act.
Yes.
In Jamaica, particularly the storytellers and the folklore that's handed down to us it's matrilineal.
Yes.
It comes from the women. And so in your book, I saw also this through line of a matriarchal language that was given to you. And I wonder what were some of the biggest lessons you learned about language as a matriarchy through some of these amazing writers that you bring up and their works.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so glad that was something you pulled away from it, because between the relationship with my mother and the relationship of feeling mothered by the authors, I think in so many ways we often ask ourselves, you want a mentor to help you, especially if you're trying to build a creative life of artistry, but the reality is the books can be the mentor. When I would read something by Maya Angelou, I was literally studying her sentences, I was studying her life experience and seeing how vivacious and free she was. You read their work, whether it's Alice Walker or Toni Morrison, you're reading about their liberation. You're not only reading the stories that they're telling, you're reading about just like their audacity to be free on the page, but also like have a model of possibility. So when I was reading their work, I was constantly feeling like, it just spoke to me like, if they can do it, I can do it too. And so the mothering that I was lacking from my mother, my physical mother, I was finding it on the pages of The Color Purple. I was finding it on the pages of Dorothy West and Gwendolyn Brooks and Audre Lorde, like reading even as you read that, like I can hear your name being called, Sinclair, like it gives you that creative chill. I recently came back from a teaching residency, and there's some things that you can't always teach, and I'm constantly telling them, like, feel it in your body. When you read something, you should feel that creative like tingle of just like, this moves me, this makes me cry, this makes me laugh out loud. And I'm kind of, trained my mind to like look for those moments of being loved by the literature that I'm reading. And it Black women just hold a special place because that history. There's that beautiful essay in Alice Walker's book, In Search of Our Mother's Gardens, when she's talking about, our grandmothers and being in the soil and gardening and, what our grandmothers could be. And just thinking of the ancestry, I think of my own grandmother and the things that she longed for that she wasn't able to bring into fruition into her life. But I'm sitting on this stage and I'm here and I'm able to write my memoir and you're able to write your memoir. And we are like birthing new possibility. So someone in this audience or someone in the future can see this and see that, okay, I can have that same possibility and lineage, right? Like we might not be, thank you. Just like, that is the mothering, and that's like the creative work, and that's why art is so beautiful, and it creates just like inspiration that you might not see in your everyday life, but you can find it. You can find it in the library, you can find it in the museum, you can find it in the archives, and you can commit to it. And I do feel the work of Well-Read Black Girl and this memoir and the work that I continue to do is just trying to create those models of possibility.
Yes, I just love that. I want to stick with this idea of mothering because one of the things that kept coming back to me as I was reading the book, and it wasn't something that I knew about your story, was how early you had to take on the role of being a mother.
Eldest daughter.
Eldest daughter, y'all.
Yes,
like,
not a
we
joke.
make the world go round for real. Like you in many ways stepped into the role of mother for your younger brothers at different times. And then, eventually the book moves towards this wonderful moment where you become a mother yourself.
Yeah.
And I wondered, and writing a book also is a form of mothering. It's probably one of the hardest forms of mothering.
Yes.
And I wondered, what did you learn about motherhood in writing the book that you didn't know before you began?
I would say this level of, get my sons up there. Hi, Siki. I learned an incredible amount of patience. And I want patience and also self-compassion. I think that previously something about just my upbringing, and I always felt I had to sacrifice. Right? It's sacrificing to the point of oblivion. I was almost a shell at times because I wanted to make the grade. I wanted to be the best. Perfectionism was built into me, and it wasn't allowing me to really be myself, my truest self. And I think mothering, with this book, the several drafts that I had, the fact that I was actually, expecting while I was writing, it forced me to be so patient with myself and to just be more tender and seeing in those moments where I need rest or I truly need to grieve a moment. It's not for me to be so hard on myself. Being hard on yourself doesn't make the work better. Just constantly beating yourself up and being self-deprecating and just neglecting yourself, it does not make the work better. But for my previous mind, my younger self would say that the harsher I was, the better it was. And the reality was no, the more rested I am and being able to look at the work with just more self-compassion, I would see patterns, I would just see connections that I wasn't seeing previously because I was just being so difficult. And I'm sure there's many parents in this room that patience is, you have to be patient with the work, you have to be patient with the child of a book or any kind of artistry, and then with your human self,
Yeah, there's this wonderful moment in the book where you kind of come to the realization of, I need to take a breath. I need to mother myself.
Yes. Yeah.
And coming to this, I think, realization of the self-compassion and self-care was for me, when I read that, I also kind of had to take a breath and say, yes, we have to remind ourselves.
Constantly, do you feel when you're reading something, taking it from theory into practice, how do you feel that because I felt a lot of times I was reading things and I would be enlightened, and then I'm how do I put this in my everyday life? You know what I mean? How do I actually put this in practice? And that was the pause of me reading a beautiful poem by Nikki Giovanni and thinking about just thinking about their words, but then going into their lives, studying Toni K. Bambara was that was it for me, because I'm just her work is so stellar, but her life it just shined through everything that she wrote. And same thing with Morrison. It's they're not just saying the things, how they live their lives.
They're enacting it. Right?
Absolutely.
And that's kind of what Lord talks about in sort of your womanist practice. It's not just to be a feminist in theory, but to live it to, live womanist.
And also be unlikable. I think I had to let go of that. That was the other part of it. Yeah, so I was just so external validation of I got a gold star, I got this thing, and then social media just up kicks that to a whole other level. And I had to like let that go too, just to be like, okay, I'm doing my best work, and I'm doing it because I really love it, and I really love the people that I'm with. Like I love being and doing the book club and the festival because I love those in-person relationships. It's just not like the dopamine kick of technology. It's like I actually, like, we've known each other for a while, you know, and I truly enjoy your company.
And
you know?
Me too. And I would never say you're unlikable.
Yes.
But I'm Jamaican, so I'm okay with people being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know, like we can sit for a while in the discomfort.
That's right.
You know, I really loved this moment in the book, an early moment where you kind of decide to speak up for the first time.
Yeah.
And it was spurred by a book you read by Maya Angelou. And I guess for those who maybe haven't read the book, maybe walk us through this moment of your first mini rebellion, which I just love. As a rebellious person through and through, I was like, yes.
Yes, you're like, yeah.
You're like, little Glory, go for it.
Get him, yes. Yes, so I grew up in Arlington, Virginia, and I went to an incredible school, and I had awesome teachers, and I took an AP English class, and I had this one teacher who said some words that I did not agree with when it came to Maya Angelou's writing, and I like spoke up. I like really spoke up and said like,
tell them what he said.
You're like, find the pages. Find the. I'm like, what did I say? I basically was like, you're wrong.
He said her grammar was wrong.
Yes, he said her grammar was wrong, and I was just like, no, sir. Like, you're not understanding the history. You're not understanding the dialect. You don't get like where this is actually coming from. It's not simply about like it being, you know, quote unquote wrong. There's a history to the way she speaks and moves, and it's poetic. Like I was like pushing back. Again, I'm, you know, a sophomore in high school, and at that time I really did not speak up at all. So it was like this really defining moment, because not only he was also, you know, shout out to Mr. Burns. He was my favorite teacher.
Is that his real name, Mr. Burns?
That's his name.
Because I was wondering.
Yeah, you know, I didn't. You know, this is the part of Memoir 101. Like I had written everyone's real name, like my best friends, with the exception of just like some exes. Yeah. Like everyone's like, you know, everyone's real name is their name. And then like all my friends from high school were like, I remember that moment in AP English when you did that. Like my high school group chat was on fire by this moment. But it was like this back and forth because I did in front of like other, you know, students in the class. I really did feel very vindicated because I was like, no, you are wrong. And I came to this space so excited to talk about her work. I had read her, I mean, by that time I had probably read her work when I was like 12 or 13. I didn't really have the rigor needed to like talk to anyone else about it. It was like me like reading it to my little brother and being in like, you know, just in the library and not having a full conversation, because that's the other part of reading, being able to have a conversation and connect with other people about it. Like I hadn't had that before, so I came in super excited to like share my thoughts and share my opinion, and to have him say that really just shut me down, and it made me furious. And he pushed back in a way that he was like, okay, if I am wrong, why are you right? And I was like, oh, okay, like we're gonna have a debate
discussion. Yeah,
like, and I wasn't prepared for him to even like
give me that space. He redeemed himself a little bit,
and he really was my favorite teacher. He really was okay. Yeah, he was cool. He was great. Like, and they just kind of it made me feel more confident as an individual, and it was kind of like this kicking off point of just like speak up and say how you feel, and like that won't be, because it could have gone a whole other way.
It could have.
Like he could have been
you could have been suspended like me.
Exactly.
Like they would just suspend me for questioning. You know, I would just tell the teachers that what they were saying is wrong.
right. And they're like, you're suspended. So that I did not get suspended. And he did just like continue to encourage me throughout like my academic career to continue that.
And I thought that was so important.
Yeah.
That he took it and he made it this moment where you were given of the space to actually speak and articulate, or try to articulate what you were thinking and why.
Yes, absolutely.
And why this mattered to you.
Yes.
And it also showed to me the importance of being seen in literature, like opening a book and seeing somebody there who looks like you.
Yes.
Hearing, reading words that sound like your own dialect, your own vernacular, it was so important. And for me, that was kind of like, it seemed to me anyway, a foundational moment.
Yes.
On your journey.
Yeah, it definitely was, because I don't think I had that push before.
Yeah.
Or even, again, the language to say like, okay, like this is how I feel about this writing. And it also did push me to attend HBCU.
Yeah.
Like, so I was very eager to attend Howard after that experience, and I wanted, or just a historically Black college, because I wanted to be surrounded by like-minded people, but also to feel like, because in that class, which is important to the story, I was like one of two Black people in the class, so it was like a sticking point of like feeling like I'm the only one speaking up and not having that support necessarily. So I wanted to continue my journey and be in a space that I felt was safe, and I could learn more about just like Black history and Black literature in particular.
And that's so important. I mean, in my own schooling, I went all the way to doctorate, and I could maybe count on one hand the Black authors I read. Yeah. So I had to kind of make my own education and seek them out myself. Yeah. So I think it's so important that you had them with you all the way.
Yeah, and I think that's like the thing that makes it so special about the Well-Read Black Girl community, because I do my best to bundle everything together. If you didn't have the experience where you're surrounded by Black literature, or you're not have access to the archives or the beautiful research centers, you have this book, and it could be a starting space where you can feel safe and you can have conversations and you can build your own communities. There's book clubs that have like the Well-Read Black Girl moniker and share it, and I'm not necessarily part of it, but I'm always like, yes, do it. Like, this is what this is for. It's supposed to be a community where people just talk and gather, whether you have a book club of 2 or 20 or 30, whatever the case. It's just about talking and sharing information, especially for younger readers. People are always surprised by my age. I am older, and but I'm just like, I'm doing this for future generations. I want like young people in college and high school and elementary school and middle school to have access to this information, especially as we have, everything feels like it's more technology, and maybe we feel like kids are not reading as much, but that's not true. They are reading and they are curious. We have to give them the resources.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you started this platform, and it's become such a big thing to be able to spread our love of reading and literature and education. For me, it's something I talk about all the time as something I see as like fundamental to my own survival. Yes. That it was something that I can say without doubt, without irony, that changed my life. Yes. And it's one of the things I loved most about reading your book is seeing also these different ways that these Black women writers and these books came to you in the moment you needed it. And I wondered what, even connected to the story before about finding your voice with your teacher. That for you was a moment of survival. It was an act of survival, like speaking your voice. Yes. And I was really struck by this moment in the book where you're flying back to Nigeria to see your dad after finding him after a long time of distance, and you're reading Lord, who is one of my absolute touchstone writers, and thinking about this idea of silence again, that your silence won't protect you, that a lot of the time not speaking and keeping your emotions in will actually hurt you.
Oh yeah. But for whatever reason, we think it's the opposite.
Yeah.
We think that like if we're quiet, if we're subdued enough, that act can be something that's life-saving, when it's the opposite. It's like you need to be uncomfortable and loud and like and just ignore the rest of the world. Yeah. The more I get comfortable with like saying what I think in the moment, and I mean, we can have some, decorum, but at the same time, just be honest about how you feel, and be honest about the consequences of that too, right? Because it's like there's always a reaction. And when I was visiting my dad, it was a mix of emotions, because I missed him terribly, but I was also disappointed in him. There was anger there. There was like all these feelings. And another Lord quote, I'm always mindful that, your anger is connected to your desire.
Yes.
So my desire was to have a relationship with him, and I was angry he wasn't there.
Yes.
So I had to address all of that, but I didn't know how to. It's like, I just felt so, so frustrated and like had all these feelings, and I had nowhere to put them. And Lord came at the exact perfect time, because I'm reading this, and it is just making me understand that, like, okay, what I'm feeling is normal, and I can find language to address the things that I need to do with my father, but also with my mother, and I can also feel okay with that. I think a lot of times we're creating these boundaries or these like rules of our own making in our minds, and they limit us. And the more we can like sit in the in-between, in the gray, like the more free we are. And I really have learned that through literature in such a deep way that, like, I feel like this chapter of my life is trying to decipher how to put that into action and how to be truly a literary citizen that challenges the things that we're, encountering in the world, And I think that, like, it's one thing to read a book, and there's another thing to act upon the principles of it.
Was there another moment that you would see as like an anchoring moment in your life where you felt like you actually just gave voice to the thing, like you this thing that needed a lot of courage and bravery that you were, I think, accumulating throughout the journey in the book, that you finally had another moment like that, a moment of survival where you said, actually, no, I'm going to speak.
Yes.
And this is what I'm going to say, or this is what I'm going to do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I would say, I talk about the relationship I had with my son's father.
Yes.
And how challenging it was to feel, especially with the experience I had with my mom and, the absence of my father, to finally feel like I'm in a relationship where I'm ready to move to the next level. And I have this person who is emotionally neglectful and who isn't really, meeting my needs. But in my mind, the right thing to do is to stay in the relationship, to be quiet, to get, prepared to have this child. And I did the opposite that, many people advise against. It was very much like, wait it out, it'll be okay. And I was just like, I feel silent, I feel trapped. I don't know if I can be the best mother I can be if I continue in this relationship. And I had to make the hard decision while my son was very young to leave, separate myself. And it was truly a defining moment. And it was, now that I look back, it was the best thing I could have ever done. But I was so fearful. I didn't want to, again, this perfectionism. I didn't want to appear a certain way or, fall into some stereotype. But I'm like, who does that really serve?
Yeah.
If I can't be the best mother I can be if I'm, like unhappy.
Yeah.
And so I made that decision, and it was even hard writing that into the book, because this book truly took me almost like 5 years to write, because I had so many different drafts and iterations. If anyone is working on a memoir, just keep going.
Yeah. Mine took 10.
Listen,
so,
it takes a long time. And as you're writing, you're living more life.
Exactly.
So it's like you're not,
Yeah, and then you're like, where do I end?
Where do I end?
'Cause I'm still living it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm in the middle of this, like, it's very complicated. Like I'm doing all these things, and I also wanted to.
Has anyone told you they don't like the ending of your book?
Oh my gosh, I have gotten some feedback on that.
Yeah, me too. And I'm just like, so you're saying you don't like
my life? Right.
My choices?
Right, exactly. Okay. Yes. I have gotten some feedback on that. Like, I'm like, well, actually, like, it's done. It's like, I can't go back now.
Yeah.
So it was a really challenging moment, and I did my best not to, because I think another thing that probably was like the hardest thing too, right? Because it was the closest thing that was like less resolved.
It was fresh.
Yes, very fresh. And I imagine even the reader can see I'm holding back on that, like versus the moments where I'm talking about my mother and my father and my siblings and things that happened throughout my childhood, because that has been a lot of therapy, a lot of talking out, a lot of things are fully resolved.
Yes.
And the relationship and my son is like still so new. I'm still learning how to mother. I actually had a moment today, and I went to Toast for brunch. I went with my son, and this young girl, she's probably like 15 or 16. She turned to me, she's like, "You're a really good mom." And I could have like cried in the Toast restaurant because I was like eating like my shrimp and grits, because I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I don't know, something about her being so young just made me feel like validated. Again, but it's just like, because I'm constantly like just trying, and I think like when you're writing a memoir, when you're just like being a person, we're in this space, like we're constantly trying to do our best and like to live a life of being an author and an artist. Like you always just have to try, and I'm like, I'm always trying, and I hope that people can see that.
We see it. We see it. And I tell you, that moment at the end of the book, I found it to be so courageous and so brave.
Thank you.
And I felt deeply emotional reading it. I was so proud of you.
Gosh,
because Zora Neale Hurston also says, if you're silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you loved it.
Yes.
And so it is not always easy for women to actually say, actually, no, I'm going to change the trajectory of my life.
Yes.
And you did it.
I did it, and I'm happy for it.
And you're happy.
Yes,
and there's joy.
I'm very happy.
Yes. I really loved that you use the epistolary form in the last chapter of the book, sort of calling back the tradition of Baldwin, and then of course quotes. And I just wanted you to talk about the epistolary as a form, and why did you feel drawn to ending the book in that way?
Yeah, so the original, as I mentioned,
for those who don't know, epistolary means it's a letter.
The letter form. There are parts of it, I talk so much about the relationship with my brothers in this book, and so much of it was reading James Baldwin to get an understanding of what he shared with his nephew, and I was trying to do my own version of that. And then the first manuscript or the first draft of this was so reliant on those letters that I wanted to do like a callback to that, and I wanted my reader to know that yes, this is my story, but this is not the end of my story, and I'm inviting you to follow my journey in what may be another book or another art form or another place where this happened and I'm resolved, and I can talk about all of the things that have gone on in my life with confidence and feel really proud, of all the things that I've experienced. And I hope that it helps other people that are experiencing similar things, or perhaps they're first generation and they're dealing with this duality and trying to figure out, how to express themselves and understand their identity, or even the relationship with our parents, our caregivers. I just wanted people to have something to really relate to and understand and feel inspired by. Yes. And I just wanted to invite them into the conversation to say that this is not the end, but it's the end. This part of my life is complete, and I want to be more present. I don't want to simply read for escape or to feel like I'm missing a role model. I want to read to live a life that is full and transparent and very clear what my goals are. And I do feel like this phase of my life, especially as I'm embarking in motherhood, is just about being just open to those moments and just more vulnerable.
Yes, and it felt vulnerable, it felt warm, and I loved, it's addressed to your son.
Yeah.
And, I think the form works so well because it does bring the reader in to this really personal space with the writer, to kind of feel you giving your son this, sort of saying, here are the things I went through in my life, and they all were meant to happen so that I could meet you.
Yeah.
And here are the things I want to tell you.
Yes, I'm trying my best. Don't make me cry on stage. I just really, because at the end of it, you go back to your original question, it's why this form? Why did you do this? And at the end of the day, it really is all for him, Yes. I just kind of felt I thought I was writing something that was just a an investigation of my life, but it was really about legacy building and making sure that he had the tools and the story of like who his mother is, and our family, and he could pick up from there. And who knows, he might never read this, who knows. But
He will.
you never know. But like,
have your brothers read it?
Huh?
Your brothers?
Oh, my brothers. Oh, yes.
Okay.
They have opinions. Like, that's another one. Anyone else writing a memoir? Your family will have so many opinions. My mom, everyone has opinions,
Yeah.
But very loving, kind, sibling-ish opinions.
Yeah. I loved your relationship with your brother in the book.
Yeah. My brothers are hilarious. My middle brother were 5 years apart, and my youngest brother were 13 years apart, so it's like a big gap. But we're all very close, and like they are my rocks. They help me with my son. They help me with every aspect of my life. This is another thing. After you write a memoir, people come up to me. They're like, "Oh, how's your brother doing? How's Maurice?" And I'm like, "Oh, did you go to school with him? Like, how do you know?
Like, why are you asking me this?
like I'm so confused." I'm like, "How do you know all these people?" And so I'm like, "Oh yeah, my brother. He just got married. He's having a baby." They're like, "That's so great. It's very encouraging." So
you expect a lot of parasocial conversations. Yes. I'm thinking as we are wrapping up, thinking about self-invention and inventing a self. You had this lovely quote from Lord about if you don't invent yourself, someone will invent her for you.
Yes.
And so I'm thinking about all the different ways you've like drawn together the pieces of a self. Even the title, this lovely title, Gather Me, pulled from that Morrison quote.
Yes.
It points to fragments of a self being drawn together. There's the woman that you leave on the page and the woman you are now. Mm-hmm. Tell me what it took to gather and invent the woman in the book, and tell me a bit about the woman you're inventing now.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, so I would say the woman that I was gathering on this page was one that was looking for belonging and acceptance. And I'm so thankful that I had the library to like pull all those pieces together and to give myself a framework. And I think so often young women are just in search for meaning, and they're looking for a way to anchor themselves, and we can be confused in that. There's just so much throughout your adolescence, whether you come from a strong family structure or not, there's just so many competing ideas that are constantly like berating you. And I'm so grateful that I was able to latch on to things that made me curious and dig deeper. Mm-hmm. And I think that is something that I've continuously kept, like the curiosity to know why, to understand something, and not for public consumption. I have like all these just random things that I'm just like curious and want to learn about. Yeah. And that is like the joy, and that process of it is just very fulfilling for me. I'm grateful that it had taken on a life of its own with Well-Read Black Girl, and I've been able to do the work that I've been able to do. That isn't something that I could have ever predicted. And I've said this so many times, there's in no world was I like on Howard University's campus thinking that this is where I would be right now. And so it reminds me as I enter this new chapter of my life to just like leave the room for possibility, leave the room for just pivoting and hope and being open-minded and loving who you are throughout the process, right? So there's so much focus often on the outcome, and especially, to be frank, just money, capitalism, you know what I mean? And I think that like truly creative people aren't focused on that. I wasn't, as I was building Well-Read Black Girl, it has been financially abundant, but at no point was I thinking about that. I truly was like reading books and gathering people because I wanted to, and I was curious, and I wanted to build community. Yeah. And I'm so grateful that I'm so grateful that was my journey and my experience, and I wouldn't ask in any other way. The person that I'm striving to be now, I'm just like looking forward to like the freedom of being who I am without any restrictions, without any need for external validation, except for that one girl in the brunch place. You know, so it was great and very loving. But I don't know. But also, like, it's getting older too. I've like talked to so many incredible women, like 40 plus, like 50 plus, who are just like, yeah, they're like, yeah, this is it. This is like, you just are free. Like, you don't feel any restrictions, and you can just like be who you're meant to be. Yeah. And as I'm like looking forward to just continuing down that path of just like being audacious and doing what like truly makes me happy. So yeah, I think that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
And thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
You've gifted us so much, and we're grateful for you and everything you've done.
And I'm grateful for you, because you are truly like the work that you're doing in the same way like your book has opened up a collective history of Jamaica, and it's made room for more writers of Caribbean descent and beyond to write their stories and tell it with such conviction and truth and such deep research. Like, that's the other part too. Like, the research that you do is so thoughtful, so intentional, and it's world changing, and you're doing that. So thank you for your work.
Gosh, thank you. Okay, so now we're gonna open it up for some questions.
Don't be shy, not everyone all at once.
Don't be shy. You're on the Jumbotron.
Can you tell us some of the feedback your brothers had?
Okay. You want the behind, you want the tea.
He wants the tea. Everybody wants the tea. When you write a memoir, everybody wants the tea.
And so, I have two siblings. One of my brothers wasn't, okay, you have to read the book, but there's a part where he has, while in college, he makes some decisions that he should not have made. And he was like very open about me talking about this experience in his life, but he thought it happened differently. And in his version, I do not save him.
Really?
Yes.
Well, how does he think he got out of it?
No, I don't know. I was like, I will pull out my checkbook because I do recall paying for this.
You're like, I have receipts.
I have receipts. I literally had receipts. I was like, no.
Timeline. Proof.
Yes.
Receipt.
Yes. I had a whole like layout. I was like, okay, that's what you think happened, but this is what really happened. So we had a little bit of a back and forth in a playful manner. He was like, all right, you might be right. And we also, we actually didn't name we had a legal person who helped us do some things, and we went back and found him because I don't name him in the book, and we like went back and found him and like thanked him and like gave him a copy of the book, and that was a really fun experience. So yeah. I think they're gonna pass a mic around. Someone has a mic.
Yes. No.
Hello.
Yeah. There's a mic.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much for this conversation. It was so good to hear y'all connect and talk about this book. I'm so excited to read it because I'm a huge fan of intertextuality and just naming and paying homage to books and people who like really do the work and change our lives. I'm interested in your relationship to how like the epistolary manifests in your life, in your daily life, right? Through text, through Instagram, through TikToks. Like how does your relationship to, I guess, like a casual epistolary influence your practice?
I feel like nowadays like everything's like an online diary. So I'm like constantly, there's actually, I've slowed down posting on social media for a number of reasons, but I still do a lot of video recordings to myself. Yeah, so I do like, I'll just like talk to camera like and think about an idea, or it helps me think through concepts. Or if I'm like, editing a manuscript and I'm trying to figure out patterns, I'll do a video to myself and talk it out, but they don't go anywhere.
The archive is in the phone.
Yes, the archive is truly in the phone. If it's something happened, they would probably, they'd be like, what is happening?
Into the phone.
Right. But I do that often. And I'm also really curious about, because because I am an elder millennial, and I'm witnessing how other generations are interacting with this like multiple selves, and that's really fascinating to watch, where there's like the online self, and there's like the academic self, and there's also just like the memes, and like there's just multiple ways people are just interacting with technology. And now we have AI, which is a whole other very complicated and quite honestly, I think, scary like addition to the mix. So yeah, I definitely do a lot of voice notes. I do a lot of like on camera, like process things to see how, because there is something really interesting of like when you look back, like you can think of something in your mind and then say it out loud and watch yourself. You're like, oh, that's not what I meant. Do you have that? Like where it's like almost like this like I don't know, like Black Mirror type thing.
Do you watch yourself like on the video?
Yeah, sometimes I'm like recording something and I'm going through it, and it'll feel one way in my mind, but then
I'm a poet. I just put it in a poem.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Yes. I am not a poet. I'm probably a little bit more practical. Like sometimes when I see something, I'm like, oh, like it sounded really good in my mind, and now that I've done this voice note, I sound crazy. So I don't know.
Yeah. Are you a voice notes girl or a text girl?
Oh, I'm voice notes. I'm a little bit of both. It depends on what my group, who my group chat is. Yeah. Yeah. I do a lot of voice notes though. Oh yeah.
Can you hear? I want to just say congratulations to you both. It's
Thank
beautiful
you.
to see you here.
Thank you.
We own your books. Seeing the references to the various women writers was like almost like a mixtape.
Yes, the best
and it was
mixtape.
just beautiful. Even your incantation of the names.
Yeah.
It's like even when you're just doing it a few moments ago, it literally, I felt it in my body.
Oh, wow.
Because so many of us grew up with these names, and we own these books, and we carry them all around the world with us. We hold on to them, we reread them. There's something in that thing of archiving these words and the magic, even this notion of a woman, I'm paraphrasing, who can help me gather myself as a friend to my soul.
Yes.
It's a very powerful concept. So you're even starting the book with that. Like first sort of took my breath away.
Oh, thank you.
I had to think about that. But I wanted to ask you about Nigeria. I'm half American, half Ghanaian. I noted when you went to Nigeria, you met the other part of the family, all the dynamics. Has anybody in Nigeria read this book and actually commented on it? Local Nigerians, not U.S. Nigerians, but in Nigeria, which has its own special sauce. Thank you.
Yes, first generation in the house, yes. So my relatives in Nigeria have read it, and I think that they're very supportive and loving, but they definitely have a different perspective, given the Western nature of the book. And there's, something you mentioned earlier too, where it's like, keeping the family business quiet. So some of the things regarding, my parents, perhaps they would not have, they've basically expressed maybe they wouldn't have said it the way I said it, just like keeping it more hush-hush. And especially because I am critical of my father and his decisions, and so they weren't necessarily in agreement with it. But at the end of the day, people have, especially my younger cousins and like the younger generations, have been super supportive and really proud of me of being able to speak my truth and publish it in a book. So they are very proud of me. Yeah.
And we're proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah. I will say a lot of first generation Nigerians, and just first generation in general, I've gotten a lot of feedback of just this, like being able to tell this story and break that barrier of like dealing with both identities and being able to say that like, okay, I am both of these cultures, and it's complicated. It's really not like a one fit thing. Like it is a very complicated thing of understanding your culture and being proud of it too, because there were moments where I felt torn or didn't feel fully connected to my Nigerian heritage because I was growing up in the States. So it's complicated. Oh yes, absolutely.
Your family and community doing in Jamaica?
Yes.
Oh. She asked me how my family and community are doing in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
Yes.
Montego Bay was completely devastated by the hurricane. My hometown was destroyed. The sea village where I was born is completely destroyed. But my family members are safe. And so I'm thankful for that, you know? They're safe. You know, the homes and properties, those things are gone. And now we have to do the work of rebuilding. And we have to really be forward thinking now about the climate crisis and how it will continue to affect Jamaica and small island nations like Jamaica. As time goes on, we'll begin to hear this term climate refugees. You know, when the hurricane was hitting, it was so powerful that they're thinking about actually creating a new category for hurricanes, a stronger category beyond Category 5.
Wow.
And there were lots of foreign meteorologists who were telling people in Jamaica that they needed to evacuate the island. To where?
Right.
Right? And so for me, it was, you know, it's been something that's breaking my heart. And, you know, if any of you have ever loved any Jamaican song, Jamaican culture, Jamaican art, if you've ever felt compelled to tell me about your honeymoon you took to Jamaica, please think of us.
Yeah.
And give back if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All of these girls are teenagers. And one of them said, before this program, I hate writing. And we know, you shall remain nameless. And we know that reading is on the decline, especially among young people. But, I mean, they text, believe me, they definitely text. That's a form of writing, but you made, I thought, a really good point between finding yourself, who you were through reading.
Yeah.
And I think that would be important, you know, for the girls to hear again, because, I mean, that was really important to me, but how reading was so pivotal for you developing your sense of self and who you were. And teenagers struggle so much with self-doubt, and you know, it helped you kind of come into your own.
Yeah, I think, you know, hey girls, how y'all doing? Hey. You know, if you know, you're texting, you're reading the captions, you're on TikTok, I know you're doing all the things. And I think that practicing your own writing, whether you want to do poetry or, you know, do screenwriting, you know, writing a script, doing a play. There were so many things that I wrote just for my own edification, and doing things for, not necessarily for your teachers, we love the teachers, but like doing it for yourself, like really finding a craft or a creative what's the word I'm looking for? Creative expression.
Yeah.
You know, the way that you dress, the way that you, you know, the things that you read, the music that you listen to, finding a way to have that, to continuously pour that out of you and to take your self-expression seriously. You know, like, I think that's the other part of just like encouraging young people to get involved into reading or any kind of art form. Like, you are the artist, like the way that you live your life, and what traveling is another way of creative expression. Archiving, going into the archive, looking at other things that people have done before and being curious about that and putting your own remix and spin on it. You know, when I'm trying to think of a young people reference. Hold on one second. Like when you're listening to, I was gonna say the Cardi B song, the Bodega Baddie song, but I feel like that's like a sample of something else. But that might not be it. But I'm trying to find an example to connect. Like, so finding things that make you just curious and go deeper, because nothing is new, right? But like you can remix it and find your own ways. Yeah. But you got it for the kids. Tell the young people something. Yeah, girl.
I mean, I think that's good advice. I think everybody, not just young people, we all need some form of creative expression.
Yes.
Because it's so fundamental to the human experience.
Yes.
It's so fundamental to us understanding ourselves and our place in the world. And there's a reason that when we are at the height of our emotional experiences, we turn to literature, we turn to poetry.
Yeah.
You know, when you're sad, when you're at a funeral, you read a poem. When you're getting married, you read a poem. When you're
Yes.
in love, you want to read a poem.
Yes.
And so literature is the thing that really connects us to our most fundamental
Being.
humanity.
Yes, and
So I think it's very vital and important that we continue to support the arts and humanities, and that you find the books or the songs or the
Yes.
artists that speak to you and that help you also find a mode of creative expression.
Yes.
To say that I'm here, I exist, and this is what I have to say.
yes, absolutely. That was beautifully said. Yes, that was beautiful.
Okay, well, our time has flown.
I think so. This was so much fun.
It was
Thank
so
you,
much fun.
Charleston. Thank you. Sarah surprised me.
Thank you, Glory.
On behalf of Charleston Literary Festival, I'd just like to thank you both for that extraordinary session. Safiya, thank you for that beautiful facilitation. Thank you for your thoughtfulness, your commitment to truth, your honesty, your vulnerability. It's wonderful to have a poet diving into work and leading a conversation. So, Safiya Sinclair, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Safiya. Thank you so much. I love you.
Thank you.
And of course, huge thanks to Glory Edim for being with us here this evening. I'm going to let you in on a little bit of inside baseball of Charleston Literary Festival now and tell you a little personal anecdote. So in 2022, when I started getting involved with the Literary Festival, Deborah Kennedy Kennard came to me and said, "Sarah, have you heard of Glory Edim?" And I said, "Oh yeah, Glory Edim." And then a little bit of time went by, and then Leilani Brown came to me and said, "Sarah, have you heard of Glory Edim? Do you know the work she's doing?" I said, "Yeah." And then suddenly Belinda Gurgle came along and said, "Sarah, have you heard of Glory Edim?" And I said, "Yeah." And soon you became an incantation for us over the past few years. And then Andrea Jasmine joined us in 2024, so she as our marketing manager. And what does she do? She runs a well-read Black Girl Book Club in Charlotte. Yes. There she is again, Glory Edim. And the thing that we admire about your work when we start, over the years as we've been watching it, is how you managed to build incredible community through a love of literature, and how you spotlight voices that haven't been spotlighted before. And we really admire that at Charleston Literary Festival. It's not an exaggeration to say that tonight one of our dreams is realized with you here.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
And those dreams are made possible by the people who sponsor our work and who support us. Can I have a huge, huge thank you to Joan Robinson Berry and Chris Berry for sponsoring this session this evening.
Thank you so much.
And also the Avery Research Centre, Tamara Butler, and everyone there as well. Finally, in the spirit of well-read Black girls, I did speak to the leading ladies. Leading ladies, can you put your hands up? And they're reading some incredible books, including Wuthering Heights, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and Metamorphosis by Kafka. So go talk, share your favorite books, and in the spirit of togetherness, and you can also meet Glory. Glory will be signing books in the signing lounge. Remember, a signed book is a great gift. So buy one for you, buy one for all your friends. And thank you so much for coming out to Charleston Literary Festival.
Thank you.